to non-UK peoples. What things do people from the UK do that you find interesting weird? Say I when someone falls over. Or drops a glass. People apologizing when passing in front of you at the supermarket. Feels good though. I'm in the UK from Canada. I can't imagine anywhere not apologizing anytime you mildly inconvenience another person. UK here, but my American ex seemed surprised that while let's go for a pint after work in the US meant let's go get a drink and head home. Here in the UK it's more like let's go get smashed after work. Apparently you really mean that crap when you say one drink. Putting X at the end of text messages. I just think that the names they give to places are so oddly fascinating, like Stoke-on-Trent, or Kingston-upon-Thames, or Aldermanbury Square. They all just seem so whimsical and full of history. All the different accents in a relatively small area. I am obsessed with British panel shows. I don't know how people over there feel about them, but I'll spend hours on YouTube watching old episodes of Cats Does Countdown, and would I lie to you? These are just quality comedy for me and far better than all the dumb reality shows on TV here in the States. Downplaying everything. Like yeah, that's alright food when in fact it was an excellent dining experience. It's out love of the ironic understatement. Bit windy in a force 9 gale. Think there's an issue when the house is on fire. You've got red on you and you're covered in blood. Using the tube during rush hour as a tourist was like a sci-fi dystopian novel. Everyone was dressed the same and completely silent except for a few people saying sorry to anyone who touched them or that they touched. And nobody laughed when the posh English lady on the intercom kept saying, next stop, Cockfosters. Transfer here for tooting Broadway. Mind the gap. Having tea. When I went over to the UK for a holiday, the people who I visited asked me what I wanted for tea. Like an ignorant fool, I replied with rubus. They were not asking what type of tea I'd like. Apparently, I felt a bit stupid, to be honest, but at least I know something new now. No, it's all in good fun. I love laughing and talking about different terminology and cultures, like chips and crisps, car park, parking lot. Actually even here people do argue about what tea means. Even bread rolls, buns, cobs. In bars and nightclubs with signs saying to not attack paramedics. Unfortunately all too necessary from what I've heard. For some inexplicable reason a lot of paramedics have been attacked when trying to help people. The pub is the most culturally UK place and queuing is the most UK behavior. Yet, there's no queuing for a drink in a pub. It's a mental queue. Everyone knows who at the bar is to be served next. Such polite insults. I was watching some Brexit crap a while ago, and some fella told another dude that he was screaming across the bar in a most eccentric fashion. As a Brit, this whole treat has been a real treat. It might just be the lunchtime beer talking. It's Friday after all, but I've really enjoyed myself. Cheers. This whole treat has been a real treat. Lunchtime beers confirmed. Constantly making jokes about diddlers. Dark humor in general. Shut up you nonce. I am Portuguese and lived in the UK for 2 years. The use of cheers confused me so much. When am I supposed to use it? Is it a thank you or goodbye or hello? Am I supposed to reply cheers in return? Cheers. Brits are so freaking orderly, in most places anyway. Everyone lines up so calmly and neatly. A man is only as good as his ability to queue. I know it's probably because of a long shared cultural history, and that most people live and die in the same areas they were born, but I don't understand the different stereotypes based on towns, cities, villages. I'm not talking really big generalities like people in the north are friendlier, or people in London are more hurried and fast-paced. I'm not talking about large regional differences. I'm talking stereotypes based on specific, very small places. Well, he was from Derbyshire. Collective eye roll. So you know how he was. You know how all those Yorkshire men of a certain age act. Heads all nod in unison. I grew up in Kent, so I was not familiar with how those chavs from Milton Keynes spoke. Multiple herumphs. I have no freaking clue what being from a specific small town or village means, but it seems everyone in the UK knows all the different stereotypes and idiosyncrasies of every village in the whole dang country. It's basically a class thing. Everyone thinks the next town over is a shithole, but if the big city 2 towns over says the same thing, then you all unite against them, and so on. I've been living in the UK for 5 years, and what still gets me is people saying you alright instead of how are you. For me, the you alright always makes me think I look sad or sick. It's weirdly accusatory, even though I know it just means how are you? How often the word see can be part of a man's language. It's either you use it frequently, or you never use it at all. American living in London for a few years now, one of the biggest things is definitely the drinking culture and how much it's embedded in all of society. I thought coming from the States that we drank a lot, but here it's on a different level. It's very common to have a pint or 2 during lunch breaks before going back to work. Pubs are on every corner and the public drinking laws are astounding for an American. The sense of orderliness and politeness. Brits are amazing diligent with following the rules. They queue quietly for public transportation, stand on the right, and don't outwardly complain when something goes wrong, though they're the best at tutting under breath. Keep calm and carry on really is practiced in every part of life here. There's a sense of collectivism that I sometimes find strange when coming from a country that prides itself on individualism. Humor. The British humor relies completely on sarcasm, while American humor is more in your face. Slapstick. They each have their place and time, but sometimes it can feel exhausting to constantly have to unpack British comedy humor due to its constant push for double entendres, ambiguity and innuendos. Innuendo. Taking the pee. People outside the UK think this is just making fun of someone, but taking the pee is a form of art that is just impressive to hear. Pull cord light switches, mostly in bathrooms. Where I come from we only have attached to the wall switches, except for maybe some super old lamps. One thing I cannot wrap my mind around is how people go partying wearing nothing but a shirt, small dress regardless of the weather, which is often quite cold, especially in, winter. I observe large groups of such people every weekend. They're not even carrying jackets or anything and they're taking the bus. This would be semi-understandable if they took cabs everywhere and literally did not spend more than a couple of minutes outside. Beer jacket is the answer. Drink enough and you'll feel hot. Sending utter crap to Eurovision almost every year despite having the best musicians in the world. I'm pretty sure everyone sends crap to Eurovision. Sinking pints in under 3 seconds. Impressive that you can do it, but why? I also find their insult humor to be fascinating. Not me, but my mum. She came from Canada and had never seen from concentrate squash juice. Their methods of swearing has always fascinated me. Here in the USA, we just call each other fuckfaces or buttholes. Over there people get called twats, tiddlywankers, and so much more. It really makes our method of swearing seem barbaric in comparison. Over in the UK we're like the fricking renaissance of swearing. Parliament. The opportunity to shout at your prime minister is the greatest crap ever. Like, every time I watch Sky, Corbyn is always just shy of calling me an idiot. That would definitely be up there as the greatest cultural import ever, if it were universal. Believe me, you would get tired of it pretty quick when they're shouting and wailing about something you actually care about. It seems like whenever you go out in public there is an unspoken competition to get from point A to point B without looking, touching or speaking to anyone, but I guess other countries say how weird it is for us Americans to talk to people we don't know. I can see it both ways. I find the local pub culture interesting and sorely hate that it's not more common in the US. The idea of just a relaxing place to have a beer and some homemade style food, and all these being readily within walking distance, makes me so insanely jealous. I am curious how the UK tackles driving under the influence. It gets to the point of course it's wrong and you shouldn't do it, but does it get beat over the head with it in the UK like it does in the US? UK driving laws are some of the strictest penalties we give. I would say the greatest difference is how US treats drugs and driving versus UK. When I moved to the UK, I found it strange to put milk in tea. Now that's the only way to drink it. Wait, not everyone does it, bloody savages. A lot of people I've met feel uncomfortable opening up about how they actually feel. I feel as if there's a certain lad culture where doing so is a sign of weakness. Job firings, or lack thereof. I live in the States but work for a British company. They will restructure an entire department to make one person's job redundant, just so they can fire them without actually firing them. Top-notch passive-aggressive move. The royal family. Are they just mascots of the UK or do they hold any political power? Hi, I'm from Germany and have spent some time in the UK. The one thing that was weird but nice was that people are polite when it comes to using public transportation. But one time the most annoying teenagers on the bus I was on stood up and left their seats as soon as two old ladies got on the bus. I'm sorry if there are any spelling or grammar errors. I hope you understand anyway and have a nice day. XX. Tapsaf. Go to make the most of those 5 sunny days. Cheeky Nandus. Now that's a phrase I haven't heard in a long time. This isn't just a UK thing, but as an American this was interesting. Weird, they put their shower towels on radiators so that it dries quickly. Plus, it's nice and toasty on cold mornings. I find fascinating the current hatred rivalry between the different countries of the UK. The Scottish government seems to despise the central UK government, which is England dominated. In fact, it's really weird how even the Welsh and to some extent the Republican Northern Irish resent the domination of England in the UK as a whole. Weirdly enough, the English don't have their own devolved parliament, so the UK legislates for the whole of Britain as well as England-specific issues, giving rise to the West Lothian question. Just a century ago it seemed that whether Scottish or Welsh, everyone had no problem with being called British back then when the British Empire was at its peak, except the Irish of course. Westminster has shown quite considerably over the last 50-100 years or so that it doesn't give a frick about anywhere outside of London. Well, I studied there for a year, and I've been there countless of times before and after. I am astounded of how much junk food there is. It is everywhere. The first thing I was told when I moved there was look out for chavs. I did not know what chavs was, but not even 5 minutes after I arrived there had been 2 chavs fighting outside the supermarket right next to where I lived, with blood spit still on the pavement when I walked into the supermarket a little bit later. I learned quickly that you needed to avoid them at most cost. What I found fascinating was that chavs could be any age, young or old. But the weirdest thing for me with UK is that for a city to get the status of a city it needs to have a cathedral. So for a big town like Middlesbrough they can never become a city unless this is changed, and there lives over 200,000 people there. I moved to the UK last November from Hungary. I was expecting much more difference, but what I experienced was that there are not much difference. I mean, we basically have the same culture. People are more friendly and helpful. When British people say 5:30, as in the time, they mean 5:30. To someone outside of the UK, they'll take it to mean 4:30, as in halfway to 5. Brexiting for months and arguing about it. Years. I'm from the UK, but I only found out we did this when I passed my driving test. Hazard lights used to say thank you to other drivers. Brits are so polite we have collectively changed the use of hazard lights, just so we can thank each other lol. I drove through Germany recently and they used them properly to warn us of traffic ahead on the motorway, Autobahn, and I found it so bizarre to see them being used for their intended purpose. Haha. I'm from the UK, but I can honestly say Northerners are a different breed. Your country is tiny but it has so many distinct accents. Did people just never move around? It is funny, to be fair, considering how big other countries are compared to us. I think people do love where they're from even if they do slag it off. This pirate hamster is here to steal all of your cheese. Subscribe in 2.15 seconds or he'll do it. Thanks for watching. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.